So I would like to welcome Dr. Talitha Washington on behalf of the Vagelos Computational Science Center. Dr. Washington is the director of the Atlanta University Center Data Science Initiative and a professor of mathematics at Clark Atlanta University. As director, she oversees and provides strategic direction of data science across Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College to increase the number of African Americans with expertise in data science. She's a former program director at the National Science Foundation and a fellow of both the American Mathematical Society and the Association for Women in Mathematics. I've been aware of her work for quite some time, and I had the pleasure of moderating a panel a few years ago that she served on as part of a Big Ten Academic Alliance Summit on advancing undergraduate women in STEM. And I'm really excited to have her here with us today to talk to us about her work on empowering data science for social justice. Dr. Washington, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and great to see you again. And thank you for the invitation to hang out with y'all today. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or you can ask me at the end, however you all want to do it. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my work empowering data science for social justice. So first you can say, well, what is this thing of data science? It's one of those things where everybody has a different definition for data science. So here's one that we'll just go with. The goal of data science is the extraction of useful information from a data set. Now, a set in mathematics, that's an undefined term. So you have to tell me what's in the set so that I know it's a set. So there's a little bit of, I guess, oddities that goes into how we define things. But if we can agree that we have a group of information or a data set, how can we extract useful information from that data set? And we can do that from a myriad of ways. We can do that, either the computer, we could do it freehand or however, but it's really taking information, taking data and creating something that's useful. And then you could say useful to whom? Well, that's another story. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in Evansville, Indiana, and kind of really didn't think I would be where I am now. So that's me on the left-hand side. That's my baby picture. They used to call me the light bulb head. And I don't know, I think I look cute, but whatever. Here's a picture of me at a Christmas dance in high school where I went with a friend of mine, Philip Lawrence. And then when we grew up, I became a math professor and he became a rock star, 8-time Grammy, Emmy Award winner. He's there with Bruno Mars. So I always say, don't underchange yourself. Don't sell yourself short as to what you can do and what you can become. Because I don't think both of us ever realized we would be where we are now. When I started at a women's college at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, and when I started, it was a rough transition just because it was a new environment, new place, trying to learn new things. I started as engineering, but I was kind of lazy. So I went with the STEM major that didn't have a lab, and that's math. So I became a mathematics major and a Spanish minor. I tested into pre-cal 2, and then in my second semester, I took a proofwriting class, took a W because it was hard. So I didn't start off, I was not a rock star. I was not that student that everybody was looking and pointing at. I just kind of, came up from the bottom, slow and steady, up goes the race, as they say. I took that class a year later, I scored an A. So I always say, just stay steady, stick with it, because you never know. I always have rough starts when I begin, but then I just stick through it. So don't let me fool you into thinking that all this is easy. It's not, but it's worth it in the end. It's fun times. This is me in undergrad. On the upper left, I flipped burgers in Lower Manly. That was our student center. Played in the Morehouse marching band. And this is me in the middle with a friend of mine, where I presented on the stability of difference equations, which really was the foundation of my research. I also did a semester in Mexico where I took math courses in Mexico, and that was a lot of fun. So I had this interplay between math and Spanish, which at the time didn't make any sense to a lot of people, because being a STEM major with some sort of global viewpoint and just enjoying that wasn't a thing back in the day. Now it's a thing. But back in my day, it wasn't. It was weird and people didn't know what it was for, but it came to fruition later. The way that I think about things is through modeling. I like to look at stuff and kind of like figure it out. So I like to look at stuff and I like to make sense of that problem, formulate a model, and that could either be a computational model, a mathematical model, or something therein. So with that, you make assumptions and choices. I like to self-analyze model. maybe toss it into the computer and create some algorithms where I could maybe get some nice predictions or approximations, where I can interpret solutions and draw conclusions, maybe then validate, and then maybe go back through the circle. And I actually approach everything in this way. Even in my team meetings, I'm drawing Venn diagrams. It's kind of weird. I'm a mathematician in my DNA, so that's kind of where I do things. And I also like all things computational. So being able to play out my math in a computational way, for me, that's kind of where I find my nice home, we'll say. I got my doctorate degree from the University of Connecticut. It was the one graduate program that I got into. And what I knew about them was they played basketball. And I'm from Indiana, so I figured they'd be good. But luckily, before I went, my undergraduate advisor said, hey, let's pull the Peterson's guide off the shelf and check them out. So I was like, okay. He was like, they graduate people. He's like, that's good. They actually look like a good program. So I was like, okay. They gave me money, so I went. And, it was a rough start again, but I stuck with it, stuck it out, found supports across campus. Dr. Wilena Kempson-Price, she was the director of the African American Cultural Center there, and I was involved in the student associations. My research advisor was Dr. Choi, and I also had a mentor, a math mentor there, Dr. McKenna, where I would go to his office and he would give me insights of what to do and what not to do. So I really had a great time there at the University of Connecticut. When I first came in, people kept asking me what country I was from, and I thought I had an accent. Maybe it's because I'm from Indiana. I don't know. I found out later that I was the first U.S. Black to come into the program and also subsequently graduate from the graduate math program. So people weren't asking me what country I came from because of my accent. They asked me because of how I looked. The expectation was not that a person of color from the United States would be going to graduate school. So I was like, I didn't quite understand or get that until later. When I was in grad school, I looked at a model of proteins acting as on-off switches, just show a little bit of equations here. And then I just developed reaction diffusions equations, and I would take these and discretize them and then put them in the computer to kind of see what would happen. And then also created, proofs and things of that nature to support that. So it was good times. And when we think about going to get the PhD, if you think about this blue circle, when we're in grade school, this is how much knowledge we know in comparison to this bigger circle, which is the entire body of knowledge. As we get older, we accumulate more knowledge, and then we start specializing when we get a major, a master's. And then with the PhD, you're contributing to the body of knowledge. So really the PhD is about how do you give back to this body of knowledge? How do you make a contribution? Doesn't need to be major, a novel break, novel, just needs to be something. And again, when I was at the University of Connecticut, people asked me what country I was from. I didn't understand what it meant at that time in 2001 for an African-American female to earn a PhD in math. I was only one of 6 US Black females at that time to earn a PhD. So there wasn't a lot in the country. And unfortunately, these numbers have not changed much across the demographic groups. So there's a lot of work to be done in math to bring some sort of equity or parity with how we see the US population as a whole. And so if we fast forward kind of to today, this is looking over time from 2009 to 2018, looking at STEM degree recipients. So this is the proportion of STEM degree recipients, STEM degrees awarded to Black recipients. So if the purple line here, that's the US Black population proportion. But down here, if we look at the undergraduate, it's flat at 8%. And so kind of indicated we're not doing any better. And we're still underrepresented in STEM. And then here we have the master's, and the doctorate is way down here. So when people thought I was from a different country, there's an underrepresentation. They just wouldn't know. If we look at computer science, since we're talking about computational science here, if you look at computer science, if we look at the undergraduate, the trend is a downward trend for proportion of computer science degrees awarded to Blacks. Now, to me, that's a problem. So if people are thinking we're doing better, yeah. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And actually these graphs, yeah, they do kind of depress me, but they also motivate me to do more. What can I do to equip students, to help them, to build programs, to expand ways in which faculty can do their thing to engage with students, to engage in research. So for me, these are more motivating than, I guess, depressing, once I get over my depression about it. So one of the things I also worry about is when we train younger people is how do we make sure that when they enter into these careers that they persist? Because me being asked, why are you here? Are you from the United States? It could be a question of, am I supposed to be here? Do I belong here? And so how do I make sure that when other people come through, they understand who and what they are and they can persist in STEM? And so this is an article that I wrote with a colleague of mine, Dr. Vernon Morris, when we really asked this question of, what must our students do to persist in STEM? If they believe in the meritocracy myth, meaning that if we all perform the same, the reward will be the same. Or wait, how do I deal with all of these haters, so to speak, on social media, spewing all of these racially charged comments? How do I negotiate that? And so that these are things of concern of what I'm thinking about when I interact with students. How do we equip them with that? So I've been around the block, I guess, so to speak. Started in Evansville, Indiana, then went to Spelman, UConn. I did a postdoc at Duke where I looked at biological processes and modeling that with math, computational modeling. Then the College of New Rochelle for a few years, and then, which is Women's College, and University of Evansville back home, because New York, where the College of New Rochelle was a little expensive. And at Evansville, I earned tenure and promotion, and then I ended up going to Howard University. And then I went to the National Science Foundation for 3 years, and then I kind of got called back to Atlanta as the inaugural director of the Data Science Initiative. So I started here in August of 2020 in a completely virtual environment. So when we go back to in person, who knows how that goes, but we make things up as we go along, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. And our motto is, I'll find a way or make one. That's the motto of Atlanta University. We just figure it out, try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, let's learn from it and move on. So the Data Science Initiative works across 4 historically Black colleges and universities. Clark Atlanta University, which is co-ed, it's a university, so it has graduate programs, R2. Morehouse College, which is all male, and Spelman College, which is all female, and then Morehouse School of Medicine, which is graduate only. And we position our data science initiative on the strengths of our students, where our students have a rich history in advocating for civil rights for African Americans. On the right-hand side is the young Julian Bond. He was a graduate of Morehouse College right after he graduated. And we have also other graduates, Martin Luther King, Stacey Abrams, and so on, who have really went on to advocate for civil rights. So we rest our data science on their strength, and we leverage data to advocate for people. Dr. W.B. Du Bois was a professor of history, sociology, and economics at Atlanta University back in the day. And he was very outspoken about talking about race in an open forum. And while there, so that's him at his desk at Atlanta University. There's a book on Amazon. If you don't have it, I would recommend it. It's the W.B. Du Bois Data Science Portraits, Visualizing Black America, where it talks about how he used visualizations to explain data. So this is before a computer. So I don't know how he drew this because I can only draw stick figures, but he would take data sets and make these interesting pictures to talk about data, interesting visualizations. On the right-hand side, this is the Du Bois spiral when he's talking about household value. And here starting off in 1825, and then as time goes on, the household value of African Americans increases, so the spiral increases. And he talks about how African Americans are building wealth in the country, in spite of help from the government. So he's, really, really cool person to know, and a data visualization innovator. So the Data Science Initiative, we leverage this rich history and social justice, and we support both data science research and teaching with an intent to address social justice for Black lives. And as they say, great teamwork makes the dream work. I've joined with a fantastic team that makes things work. Dr. Ballinger, he's our deputy director. Bettina Gardner is our administrative director. Tommy Taylor is our communication specialist, so you can find us on all social media and the gram. Dr. Ebony Dotson is my executive assistant. Manoa Farmer, he's our data analyst, and Carolyn Rhodes is our recruiting coordinator. And it really takes a whole team to to make all of our machineries go. So I'll share a little bit about what we have been up to. We're in the process of hopefully implementing a data science minor. We built an AUC data science minor framework across the schools. And so now we are in the process of seeking approval from the undergraduate schools, Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark Atlanta. So we're really excited about this minor. We also, last year, we had a student data challenge where students investigated data sets, qualitative data sets, with the intent to erase child trafficking. So they looked at social media posts to see what would catch people's eyes so that we could link those who are being child trafficked to viable solutions. So it's a way that we can engage our students in these real challenging societal problems. We also have culturally relevant data science courses. The cornerstone course for the minor is a 0 prereq course, Data in the African Diaspora, which essentially is an introduction to data science, but the focus is on data science linked to Black communities. And so it's a way for students to kind of investigate data science with the intent of the interweaving of social justice topics. It's an approved course at Morehouse, and at Morehouse, they're actually focusing on data sets that are related to Black males. So it's an interesting way to train up students and to explore data science. We also have an AI for All program. So AI for All is a national initiative, and they have sites at different schools. And they have like a 3-step program where it's Discover AI, Apply AI, and Career Development. We launched it at Morehouse College in the fall. In the springtime, we're launching it at kind of Spelman and AUC-wide. And it really helps students just to spark their interest and increase persistence in AI. So we're excited about that. And this is Professor Yvonne Phillips, who has spearheaded the Data in the African Diaspora course and also the AI for All program. Well, and with all these programs, we need computer. So we partnered early on with SAP and Coca-Cola to stand up a virtual computer lab so people can just request and they can get, it's in the web browser and they can access different programs online. So that was a nice partnership, and we continue working with them to do programming with students and also provide job and career opportunities for students. And really with all this programming, we're thankful for our sponsors, not only for funding us, but for working alongside with us and developing programming with our students and our faculty as well. So, and we have friends. So our friends are your friends, I guess. So at Columbia University, we enjoy a nice relationship with the Data Science Institute there, where we meet with them on a quasi-regular basis. And when I first got started, they were very kind to reach out and just kind of share with us what they've learned so we can build up our data science initiative here. So if you don't know anything about the Columbia University Data Science Institute, look them up. They're fantastic. I'd be happy to make a connection. It's a great group of people. We also here hold summer workshops for our faculty, staff, and graduate students. We had like over 200 participate last summer. And of course, our students got wind of it. They were like, we want our own, which is cool. So the Data Science Club, they're hosting a series of workshops through the semester where we help find people in industry or other places just come in and do, hands-on engaging data science with the students. So it's really been fun to see people kind of explore data science through these workshops. Also for the faculty, we have mini grant awards to kind of kickstart them up into developing courses or summer research or support summer programs for students, summer research programs. So that's been really fun to see people just kind of gravitate into data science. At Clark Atlanta, we had a program that had 2 pillars. One was faculty training in data science, and another one was an undergraduate research and data science experience. And at Morehouse School of Medicine, they had a health data science summer bridge program in biotechnology and bioentrepreneurship. Data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning in the health fields, it's a thing. So them and their biotechnology program is very top notch. So their program, check it out, great program. We also hold summer programs for our incoming students, our pre-freshman experience. And then last summer we hosted an Open Doors by Open Source program for post-bac students and open source software development funded by the Sloan Foundation. So we were just kind of going at all different angles. How can we provide different ways for people to engage in data science? In September, we'll host it again this September, we had the virtual student data science symposium where students gave 5-minute lightning talks on their research work. And like I said, our club has been super active. They have different speakers. For example, they had a person from Johnson & Johnson talk about pharmaceuticals and data science, and they have another one tomorrow. I can't keep up with them, but they are amazing and fantastic, just really active in pulling people in and having people talk with them. So what are the things that I'm thinking about with respect to data science and the things that we address with data science? This appeared in the New York Times back in July of 2020, where Robert Julian Barack Williams was wrongly accused by an algorithm. So imagine he's coming home from work, his wife and kids are in the yard, he's coming up to greet them, the police come and they arrest him in front of his wife and kids. And they take him downtown. He kept saying, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. But they accused him anyway, took the mug shots, fingerprints, DNA and everything, held him overnight. And it turned out it was not him. It was not him who stole from an upscale boutique. And he kept saying it wasn't him. And the police department used a company that had an algorithm that was known to falsely identify African-American faces 10 to 100 times more than Caucasian faces. So they finally did let him go, and the detective said to his partner, I guess the computer got it wrong. So imagine being handcuffed in front of your family. And they actually said that his kids had nightmares about this because it had to have been traumatizing. So when we think about data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, it's not just some abstract concept, not just something we do on the computer, but it's something that can impact lives, people, and human beings. And in many cases in our country, it can negatively impact African Americans. Timnit Gebru has been in the media. If you don't follow her on Twitter, she's really fun to follow. She co-authored a paper, Gender Shades, that looked at facial recognition systems, and she evaluated 3 classification systems. So here in the bars here, it's accuracy and gender classification. So if you're a darker male, the IBM one is 88%, 99.3%, 94% accurate, right? And if you're a lighter male, 99%, 99, close to 100, lighter female, and so on. However, if you're a darker female, the accuracy drops way down to 65.3%, 65%, and 79%. Meaning that if you're using these facial recognition software in policing, in traffic cams, in whatever, if you're a darker female, it's going to inaccurately mislabel you. That's a problem. And so one of her things was, we need to be transparent about what these algorithms can and cannot do. There was a big debacle where essentially she wanted to publish a paper, and when she put it for approval while she was at Google, they said that it didn't meet their bar for publication. And some say at Google that they pushed her out because of the inconvenient truths. So yeah, that was a big, right. It's an understatement, a hot mess, so to speak. She co-founded Black and AI. She's still very active in the field. And like I said, follow her on Twitter. And actually the Google CEO apologizes and vows to restore trust. Not sure what has happened since, but yeah, it's a problem. We also see that machine learning and artificial intelligence is helping doctors treat patients. So imagine if you're a patient, you go see the doctor and you say, oh, I have this symptom, blah, blah, blah. The doctor says, okay, great. I'm going to put it in the computer. You may run some tests, take some vital signs, get all of that data, put it in the computer. And then what does the computer do? Tosses it into some sort of artificial intelligence machine learning program. And what it can do then is go back and provide a treatment option or a treatment plan for the patient. Now, if this artificial intelligence machine learning algorithm is built on cases that is skewed by demographic groups, meaning if it doesn't include people that look like me, it could misclassify health treatments for people like me, which could have potentially negative physical outcomes. So that's one of the things that's kind of right now is a really area of concern, is that we're not testing these models on a wide demographic groups, or we don't have enough data available across demographic groups to really have viable models. And we may be using them anyway. And so not too long ago, the FDA released an artificial intelligence machine learning action plan, because this is it's rolling into the health fields, and it's coming in and people are trying to figure out, well, what do we do and how do we make sure that people are still safe in that field? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. We also see other parts of data science being used to do voter suppression. So this is an article that came out from the Miami Herald back in October of 2020. It was entitled, "How the Trump Campaign Used Big Data to Deter Miami-Dade's Black Communities from Voting." So essentially what they did was they built a computer algorithm. It analyzed people's voter data, used some machine learning algorithm, right? Just scraped everybody's data. And they marked certain voters for deterrent, meaning they were going to target certain voters with advertisements, misinformation, and misleading messaging, so they wouldn't vote, or they would vote in a certain way. And so in this case, 25% were Black, even though they made up 13% of voters. And before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Christopher Wiley said that Cambridge Analytica offered voter disengagement as a service in the United States, and their internal documents that he had seen that make reference to this tactic. And he said that this firm would target African-American voters and discourage them from participating in elections. So here's an example about how people use machine learning to deter people from voting, which some people would call the modern day Jim Crow. And most recent, this is, I guess, last month, time flies, and January 10th, if you haven't checked it out, it's a pretty interesting article. The Washington Post put out an article, Democracy, I can't talk, Dies in Darkness. So this talked about, it said more than 1,700 congressmen owned once enslaved Black people. This is who they were and how they shaped the nation. So they did a whole data scraping. They have the data on GitHub freely available. And they did a data mining of people in Congress who owned slaves. And they said that in 1850, as Senator Daniel Webster delivered a famous speech about slavery, 45 of the 106 congressmen listened owned human beings. So it gives a visualization of who these people were that shaped our country and which ones of them owned human beings. So if you haven't seen this article, I would definitely check it out. We also have recently, back in May of 2021, the New York Times put out an article on the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. In this massacre, hundreds of residents, more than 1,250 homes were erased, and it said erased years of Black success. And so in this case, there were journalists. What they did was they took these 2D images of the town, used recognition software to build up this 3D model of the town. So you can see how they recreated Tulsa, Oklahoma here, and also recreated these 3D buildings. So you can see the buildings, you can see the neighborhoods, and it's almost like you're touring through the neighborhoods in a virtual environment. And so here you can see they did a visualization as there was a riot that erupted, and the white mob came into the Black area of town, and basically it was a massacre. And it was devastating, to say the least. And this has been in the news recently. And there was a person who was at the hearing that testified. She was 107 years old. She said that she lives in massacre every day. And she said, "We'll never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see Black men being shot, Black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and fire." I mean, I myself, I couldn't imagine. But these journalists, they took machine learning so that people could actually see and almost travel through the town. So this is just a way we can use visualizations to tell our story. At Morehouse School of Medicine, the Satra Health Leadership Institute developed a health equity tracker. So looking at COVID data through a health equity lens to make sure that we're really looking at, well, how does COVID impact different demographic groups, and how do we track that? Right, so we can bring equity. So on their website, so here's New York, right? I think we're in New York virtually. Here, this is from their website, the Health Equity Tracker, where they're looking at the COVID cases per 1,000 people. So you can look it up by state, you can look it up by demographic group, and what have you, and so on. So you can I'll just say you can see where you are. They also have, you can look at the share of COVID cases by population, by race and ethnicity. And here we have Louisiana. I thought, no, this is actually New York. I forgot to change from Louisiana. But anyway, so if you have right here, there's 41.2% of the cases, even though this is a percent of the population. So this is what we would call an underrepresentation. And then here, if Hispanic or Latino is 31.4% of the cases, but this is the percentage of the population. That's what we would call an overrepresentation. So this is New York. I apologize, I forgot to change the state there. But so it gives you a breakdown of how is COVID impacting different communities in different places across the country. So when we think about this data science and the health sciences, you know, thinking about COVID, thinking about these different remedies that are being created, diversity is becoming more important. It's actually been shown that if you have diversity in the healthcare industry, minorities, underrepresented groups actually receive better care. And there's a need to provide, what do they say, culturally appropriate care to America's diverse populations. And this article says health disparities and the right to health are not solely healthcare issues, but they are civil rights and racial justice issues. So as data science is coming into the healthcare, as it's being used to make decisions about who goes to jail and who doesn't go to jail, we really need to be concerned about the inequities in making sure that we're using them in a way that makes sense and doesn't negatively target one population or another. So if you're interested in learning more about the Health Equity Tracker or the New York Times journalists on the Tulsa Race Massacre, y'all are invited to come to our W.B. Du Bois Data Science Symposium, where they will both be featured there. It's on Friday, February 25th. It's free, open to the public. You're welcome to pop by, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I started off by working across four HBCUs, and one of the things I had said previously is that I'm concerned about diversity in the field of data science, because I think it takes diverse perspectives to handle some of these culturally, racially hard problems, we'll say. And HBCUs have a rich history in graduating Black STEM talent. So HBCUs graduate 24% of Black students with STEM degrees, even though they enroll 10% of all Black students. And HBCUs are the country institution of origin of almost 30% of Black graduates in STEM doctorate programs. So when I go to math meetings, I'm like, yep, HBCU grad. So, you know, my thing is to leverage HBCUs and their strength in developing STEM talent and using that to leverage developing talent for data science, because the demand for those who have data science skills is very high right now. And so I work across all these institutions, so getting everybody to collaborate, and we're also branching out to other HBCUs and other institutions as well. We're being pulled in that direction, which is super fun. So I have a lot of friends in a lot of places, and having a virtual environment, it's almost like we're close. I work closely with a lot of people, even though I've never met them in person. It's kind of weird, but you know, maybe the virtual environment does bring some goodness. So just some strategies that I've used along the way in my path. I always say establish robust social networks. So like when I started, I was like, what am I doing? And they were like, that's what we hired you for. So luckily, like I said, the Data Science Institute at Columbia, they were like, hey, we're your friends in data. Let's meet and talk. And we would talk back and forth and share ideas, you know, but that network really helped ground me in our work here. And work through failure. I fail a lot, especially on the dance floor, but I fail a lot in a lot of arenas, but it's not about failing, it's about learning from failure, right? It's either you're successful or you learn. It's one or the other, and that's it. So, you know, it's about working through that. And also voices that advocate for diversity and inclusion shouldn't always come from me. It has to come from a chorus of people. So one of my goals is to position other people to kind of sing in that chorus, to advocate for everyone. And also actively seek out supports. So now is a trying time. So I would definitely actively seek out supports, maintain well-being. I'm an exercise junkie, kickboxing, yoga, dancing, weight training, you know, HIIT, that's me. So find something that you like and make sure sometimes you get out of the academics and they come back fresh to it. And be receptive to feedback. So sometimes feedback can be hard to take, but hey, if it can help be better, then why not? And also to stay curious. So they say that curiosity is actually a defense mechanism for fragility. So if you can be curious about something, usually if you can take that stance, it's not so bad. So I'm just like curious, why do you think that? What about that? How do we do that? And at the end of the day, enjoy what you do. You know, like I said, I enjoy my hip hop dance class. I kind of miss them in DC, but we're still connected on Facebook. And I follow this lady, Kathy, here on exercise. And being involved in the math community. I was at NSF and Upper Right. Here all my kids doing their thing in life and going off into their own STEM directions. Kind of fun to watch them. And I always say, if you're ever down in Atlanta, we'll be right here, right outside downtown Atlanta. So with that, thank you for having me here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Washington. That was really wonderful. I loved that you shared your journey with us as well. I think that that's like a really nice insight into how you kind of don't just get to where you are with the snap of a finger, that there's trials and tribulations. And I really appreciated that you shared that with us. And so I invite anyone to, you know, turn on their video if they're comfortable, or even just unmute themselves and ask questions. We have about 15 to 20 minutes. And so while people are thinking, I actually had a question. I was curious, in one of the later slides that you showed about health equity, there was an article in the corner that asked, does responsibility of building diversity in health informatics fall to universities? And I actually wanted to get your take on that, especially with the latest news. I think it was like 2 weeks ago about IBM Watson and how that part of the company was sold off to a private equity firm. And what does that say about the state of health informatics and who's involved in that? And so I'm just curious about your take on that.
Yeah, they always say somebody's got to take responsibility, let's say for cooking in the kitchen, or else the food never gets done, right? So I think, you know, the people ask, well, whose responsibility is it, right? So it's one idea to, some people say, fuel the pipeline or the pathway or what have you. So indeed, providing opportunities for students to engage in health informatics, also building programs and providing access. That is, I think, the responsibilities of universities. And it's one thing that we're doing at Morehouse School of Medicine with their post-bac programs. They have master's programs and also PhD programs. And they're nice. They do a great job. They both have online and in person. Oh, I see the other Dr. Washington's here. And so the other part is, once we train them up and they enter into the healthcare industry, what are they going into? So I remember when I was talking with some industry folks a few months ago, I was like, you all can build the students and the pipeline and we can create the students, but what are they going to go into? How are you receiving them? What sort of opportunities will they have when they get there? And so it's like, are we going to just throw them into the lion's den? Or are you actually going to have them come into an environment that's kind of conducive and I don't want to say touchy-feely great, but at least not hostile. I don't know what the best way is. So I think there's multiple facets. A lot of people say it's got to be the university, and then the university says, no, it's K-12, and the K-12 says, no, it's pre-K. You know, so wherever, in my mind, wherever I am, I take responsibility for my part and what I can do. In this case, for the Data Science Initiative, it's looking at undergraduate education, looking at graduate education. How can we equip them? And how can we equip the faculty to either do research that can address AI, ML, and healthcare? And also, how can we equip faculty to work with students in that field? And then when we interact with industry, how do we push industry to think beyond, I just want to recruit students and check my box, I got my numbers. Like, no. You can check your box and you can help us build our programs here. and we can help you all think about diversity so that you can have a workplace that our students actually want to go to. So I kind of, at least from where I sit, it's like take responsibility for where I am and what I can do about it. Instead of, what do they call it, passing the buck or something?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. We have a couple questions. So in order, I think it's Freddie, Zoe, and then Rebecca. So Freddie, if you'd like to ask your question.
Hi. Let me take off on that. Sorry. Hi, my name is Freda. I just have a general question. I have my bachelor's in IO-Com, so business person communications, my master's in SPED, and I'm transitioning into data science. So my question would be, what advice do you have somebody that didn't go up the traditional STEM that's transitioning into data science?
I think I did that. Data science wasn't a thing back in the day. So there's okay. So you know Coursera?
Yes.
edX? Yeah. So a lot of students, I'll be honest, and faculty, they'll just dive into Coursera or edX and honestly do certificate programs. Or you could do like my students did. When I was at Howard with the other Dr. Washington, we were both there, they would pull me by the ear and say, Dr. Washington, we need to do data science. I'm like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. They're like, we need to do data science. I need to get a job. And this is something that's important. So this is how they would talk to me too. So we need to do this. I need a job. And can we get this? Can we get this done? Can we like do this spring semester? You know, it's like, okay. So I actually started by students asking me to do it, just leading an independent study. And so we would investigate different data sets, you know, using R and just kind of going through it. And then the independent study led to with one, and then it went with 3 students, and then it went to a course, and then it went to, I'm running the data science program for improving undergraduate STEM education at the National Science Foundation. Like, how does that happen? So, and also in between, I went to different workshops. I was like, oh, that's a cool workshop. I should try that one. Before we came on, I was saying that I went to the Park City Math Institute. It's a 3-week program. If you don't know about it, you should go. I love it. It's in Utah. I don't know why I like Utah. But anyway, it was a 3-week program nestled in the mountains where we did like data science, and we actually developed the curriculum guidelines for undergraduate data science education. So we just sat in a room for 3 weeks talking about this. What is that? But then I also got to hung out with the research groups and hung out with the graduate students solving problems, and also hung out with the undergraduate, like the research experience for undergraduates. It's a big summer program. Just imagine, it's big with all you can eat buffet food and 2 hot tubs. Great time. But anyway, so they had natural spring too, which was really nice. But, you know, finding those experiences, looking at the different math institutes, there are free opportunities, there are conferences to go to, and just kind of diving in it and being curious. What is that? How does that work? Wait, how does, you know, and I'm really bad. I watch like data science lectures and things on YouTube when I wash my dishes. That's my entertainment. So, you know, it's kind of feeding your mind through traditional with the faculty and maybe through research projects, but also not so traditional. Do it on your own through Coursera, watch YouTube videos. We hosted the other Dr. Washington in the fall, and she did a great seminar. I'll see if I can find the link and put it in there. But and just like look at different videos and just feed your mind, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so if you have any holidays, if people want to buy you presents, say, can you buy me a Coursera token? Or, you know, saying, can you give me a ticket to a conference so I can learn? The Tapia Computing Conference happens in the fall. ASA StatFest in September. So get out and go to these conferences. Well, either virtually or in person, I guess, these days. Yeah.
Zoe, I think you're up.
Sure. Thank you so much. This was a great talk, and I really appreciated that you included some information about your experience and sort of your career path. And I really appreciated that you talked about I don't want to say failures, that feels too coded. Challenges that you faced as, you know, a young person in undergraduate mathematics. When I started, I thought I was going to be a math major, and I felt like I struggled a lot because it was, you know, challenging material. And at the end of the day, for me, like the my research interests were not in math, so it wasn't worth the challenge. But I think one thing I struggled a lot with was like not seeing that frustration represented and encouraged by my department and, you know, by peers. So I'm wondering, you know, I showing really failure or challenge looks like in undergraduate math education is really important. So I guess I'm just curious to hear your take on what an inclusive math classroom looks like and what good sort of math pedagogical practices look like.
What, for failure? So you went from
accordingly.
failure to pedagogical practices.
I mean, I feel like for me, it was really me, other people struggling around me. And that's the classes that I did best in were ones where all of us were struggling. So I'm wondering, you know, how as an instructor, how as a teacher, do you structure your classes to encourage, you know, embracing challenge?
Yeah, I think a friend of mine said, if you're not struggling, you're not learning. So it's kind of like expecting to struggle. So how do I structure my classes? I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm a little selfish. I'm like, if I get bored, it's not a good time. So I at least want to have a good time. Now, if my students have a good time, it's all good, right? So I'm kind of, you know, so my thing is I'm looking out. Are people attentive? Do you have what you need? Let me check in. Do you have a, you know, I'm kind of old. So if a student has so my students now are students and faculty, you know, go figure, right? So I'm always looking for input, because there's a saying, never be so sure of something that you wouldn't take something better. So if somebody has an idea if we should do this better, go for it. We can try it out. You know, sometimes it's not a good look, but you know, sometimes. And I think that you know, my previous institution, my colleague, John Harkless, he's a computational chemist. He would always say that we in STEM don't talk about how we failed. And we give off this impression that we all just went through and aced everything and we're just here magically and we don't get gray hair for no reason, right? Like, yeah, so I fail a lot. No, I would use the word fail. So like I said, I told Sarah that first year, and then my second year, I remember going to my friend Eric. I was like, Eric, dude, this math is hard. I'm about to drop out. I can't do it. It's so hard. He was like, stick with it. I said, I'm about to be a Spanish major because, you know, it's too hard. He's like, you better get the math job, you know. So I just had that one friend who was like, you better stick with it. Now, I think he was in his 6th year at Morehouse in engineering. I shouldn't say that. But I just had that one friend that was like, look, if I'm sticking this out, you better do it too. And I did. Now, mind you, I mean, I had all A's and B's in my math class. I had high grades, so it wasn't that I was completely tanking. I had an expectation that I thought I should meet, but I was doing okay. And then in the fall semester, my junior year, when I studied abroad in Mexico, I took linear algebra 2, and the professor, he pulls me aside. He said, "Are you sure you want to take my class?" I said, "I'm good. I'm good." He was like, "I have a speech impediment." Oh, okay. Now, no, I didn't take linear algebra 1, and it's proofwriting. And yeah, it's all in Spanish, right? And I'm from Indiana. So yeah, I went from, I still have my notebook from that class too. I literally had a 0. So I was like, oh gosh, where's my face? Let me go find it, put it back on. And then I just put everybody in the class and said, we're going to go hang out in the library. We're going to study. I don't know what's going on here. You know, but it's just having that spirit of, okay, I took an L. What am I going to do about it? Not what's it going to do to me? What am I going to do about that? How can I leverage what's around me? How can I leverage my resources and be resourceful in finding solutions to kind of to bring to fruition what I'm trying to do, right? And so no, I do feel a lot, you know, foot and mouth. I'm good for that, you know, all the time. But it's not about just stopping there and saying, oh, I messed up. It's I messed up. What can I do better next time, right? I mean, if I keep messing up over and over again, now that's a problem, right? But if I mess up, I learn from it, pivot, do something else. That's the end game. That's the goal. Because I'm going to mess up. I fail a lot, but it's about, you know, can I learn it and do better, right? I mean, if you saw me exercising to that dance video this morning, that was definite epic fail, but I'm going to get it, right? But hopefully nobody's watching that. But no, failure is one of those things. It's a part of life, but it's a part of, okay, I screwed that one up. How should I do that better next time?
Thank you for that. I think that also reminds me of that bullet point you had at the end about how important peers are and a network, creating a network as you kind of learn and grow, and you go through these learning processes where you're trying and failing again. Rebecca is next.
Yeah, thanks. What a great talk. I've been having a conversation with individual students, and in some of my classes, it comes up lately where the basic question is, especially among students who are about to graduate or considering the computer science major, is it ethical to work in tech these days? And so we've been discussing it a lot, and I guess I'll share, I'll preview that my answer is yes, and not only like it's necessary that people who are asking that question work in tech, but I wonder if you have sort of an answer and some thoughts on that to share.
What about working in tech makes it unethical in their mind?
I think it often comes up around issues of discrimination and bias around AI and automation, also sort of job loss, sort of the all of the things that can go wrong, and and even like all this stuff with social media and democracy, like the idea that there's all these things that can go wrong, and Silicon Valley seems to be driving towards them rather than being thoughtful about them, just seeing the business opportunity and not really thinking about the landscape, I guess.
Yeah. So, everybody has to make their own choice. But I know for me, when I was going to graduate school, they didn't sugarcoat. They're like, yeah, if you go to that program, you're going to fail out because they fail out Black people, right? It's just, let's just be blunt and put it on the table. If you're going to go into this, let me put it on the table so you know what you're dealing with. You can make a choice and decision. So when I speak with students, I'm very honest. Like, if you go into this, what did you, so I had a student, she participated in REU, and I was like, where, I won't say the place, where was it? She told me, and I was like, yeah, and I actually called a couple of people and was like, what do you know about this? And they're like, yeah, not too well. And she said she kept having to, say the same things over and over. We need to look at this data set that really takes into account different ethnic groups and yada, yada. But she said her voice just wasn't heard until like the way end. And she said it was so frustrating. And I told her, I said, yes, that's probably true, because this is how the reputation of that environment is. So painting that picture, saying, yes, it is like that. It's not like that everywhere. And if you're not there challenging that or creating what should be there, it's not going to get done. So, there's that saying that it must be us, because if we don't do it, it's just not going to happen. But while also painting a realistic picture of their environment, so for at least students and also friends and peers, so the people don't interpret it thinking it's in their head, it's really in the environment, and how do they negotiate in that space so they can move the social levers that need to be moved while also keeping sanity, so to speak. So, I tell people, I was like, look, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. So how are we going to make this happen, either in this way or that way? There's different ways people can make impact. I don't necessarily see going into tech as unethical. I think that if somebody ends up in a position or is in a position and does unethical things, now that's another story. I think that's where the unethicalness starts. I guess the challenge may be is if you end up in a situation where ethics are a question, how do you then negotiate that? How do you go about challenging that? In particular, if you're a new employee, if you're the new kid on the block, how do you do it in a way that doesn't kill your career? How you do it in a way that you still are working to achieve your goal and you don't have this whole environment like weighing you down. Some places are not conducive to be in, and they won't appreciate the talent one brings because of maybe how they look or gender and things like that. And and sometimes we do have to go to other places, but I wouldn't totally shut out a whole industry because of the hype, so to speak, but really make that judicious choice of, if I go here, then what would happen? Understanding the dynamics, understanding how to navigate with an informed decision, and then do it, versus hearing all these other things. But then also staying grounded to reality, to make sure that if one does enter into a hostile environment, you kind of don't go, yeah, because unfortunately they still exist. Hostile environments aren't only in tech industries, they can be in different industries. how do we navigate spaces so that we can bring about change, maybe in a way to decrease the hostility, increase, some increase the love, right? It's almost Valentine's Day, right? Increase the love, so to speak, but in a way that our career can still propagate forward. That's tricky, especially for new people coming up, because I think that when you're young, you want things right now. And there may need to be some understanding first, about a deeper understanding about the system, and developing a network so that if whatever does hit the fan, your network can kind of back you up. So there's that, I don't know what you saw, the mafia approach too also helps,
Thank you so much.